There comes a time in life when silence speaks louder than explanation, when walking away is wiser than proving your worth. You're not here to convince the blind to see your light. Stop explaining yourself to demons hiding in people. You don't owe anyone an explanation. Let that truth settle deeply into your spirit. You don't need to justify your path, your growth, or your choices to anyone who is not living your life, feeling your pain, or walking your journey. So many people waste years of their lives trying to make others understand decisions that were never meant for them to understand in the first place. The reality is, most people who demand an explanation aren't seeking understanding. They're seeking control, compliance, or confirmation of their own limited beliefs. You were not born to meet everyone's expectations. You were born to live in alignment with your own soul. When you try to justify your beliefs, your boundaries, or your dreams to those who are committed to misunderstanding you, you give away pieces of your power. You begin to shrink yourself to fit into spaces that were never meant for you. Every time you over-explain, you tell your spirit that someone else's opinion matters more than your own truth. And that's a dangerous lie to live under. People will judge you no matter what. If you stay silent, they'll say you're weak. If you speak up, they'll say you're too loud. If you follow your heart, they'll call you foolish. If you follow the crowd, they'll say you lack direction. So if judgment is inevitable, then live in such a way that you are at peace with yourself. You don't owe anyone a breakdown of why you chose to walk away from a toxic relationship. You don't owe anyone a reason for prioritizing your mental health, your peace, or your vision. You don't have to explain why you're distancing yourself from chaos, or why you no longer respond to certain energies. Sometimes growth looks like silence. Sometimes power looks like saying nothing and simply walking forward. We live in a world that constantly pressures us to explain ourselves. Social media, family, friends, even strangers want a reason for why we are the way we are. But here's the truth. You're not responsible for making others comfortable with your evolution. Growth is uncomfortable not just for you, but especially for those who remain stagnant. Your change reminds them of their refusal to grow, and that can trigger their demons, but that's not your burden to carry. Stop seeking validation in places where your soul isn't seen. Stop trying to water yourself down so others can digest you. The right people won't require an explanation. They'll recognize your heart without needing a full speech. Your life is yours and yours alone. You're not an open book for everyone to read and critique. You are a sacred journey, meant to be respected, not dissected. The people who matter will understand you even when you say nothing at all. And the ones who don't, no explanation will ever be enough for them anyway. Walk boldly, live truthfully, and most importantly, stop explaining. You don't owe anyone that much access to your soul. People often project their own insecurities onto others, and if you're not careful, you'll begin to internalize that projection as your truth. The criticism, the negativity, the judgment, it might come at you like it's personal, like it's meant to diminish your worth. But here's the deeper truth. Most of it isn't really about you. It's about them. It's about their fears, their pain, their limitations, their jealousy, their own unhealed wounds. People who haven't faced their demons will often try to make you feel guilty for having the courage to face yours. When someone tells you that your dreams are too big, it's because they've already convinced themselves that theirs are impossible. When someone tries to shame you for changing, it's often because they're too afraid to grow. They feel stuck, and your movement reminds them of their stillness. They feel small, and your power threatens their illusion of control. So they throw stones. They mask their fears as advice. They hide their insecurities behind sarcasm, criticism, and emotional manipulation. But their darkness doesn't belong to you. Their internal war has nothing to do with your peace. The truth is, most people aren't reacting to you. They are reacting to what you trigger inside of them. You might trigger their fear of being left behind. You might awaken their guilt for not chasing their own potential. You might make them confront their own lack of discipline, focus, or courage, and instead of reflecting inward, they lash outward. It's easier for them to tear down what's rising than to rise themselves. It's easier to critique your evolution than to start their own. So they throw words like knives, hoping to puncture your confidence just enough that you stay small, stay silent, stay safe. From their perspective at least. But you must understand, what people project is not your responsibility to absorb. It's not your duty to carry someone else's unhealed trauma as your own burden. You are not here to become the emotional punching bag for those who haven't yet learned how to love themselves. Just because someone is speaking loudly doesn't mean it's speaking truth. Just because someone is older, louder, or more dominant doesn't mean they're wiser. Some people never outgrow their wounds. They just get better at disguising them. You have to develop the awareness to recognize when negativity isn't really about you. That awareness is your protection. It keeps you from internalizing opinions that were never yours to begin with. It reminds you that someone else's disbelief in your potential is not a sign of your limits, but a reflection of theirs. And it gives you permission to keep growing, keep moving, and keep becoming, even in the face of criticism. Don't let someone's inner chaos become your outer reality. Don't let their demons become the lens through which you see yourself. You are not their fear. You are not their insecurity. You are not their bitterness. You are simply a mirror reflecting what they refuse to see within themselves. And you don't have to break yourself to make them feel whole. Demons don't always show up with horns and fire. Sometimes they come in the form of people. Smiling faces, familiar voices, even those who claim to love you. They wear the mask of concern, but behind it lies control. They disguise their jealousy as advice, their manipulation as care, and their envy as judgment. These are not strangers in the shadows. They're often people you know, people close to you, people who should uplift you, but instead seek to hold you back. They might act like they want what's best for you, but their actions speak otherwise. When you start to rise, they feel threatened. When you chase your dreams, they grow silent or critical. They don't cheer for your growth, they question it. They don't celebrate your success, they diminish it or ignore it altogether. And the worst part? They do it with a tone of familiarity, under the guise of just being honest or looking out for you. But in truth, they're feeding their own demons, insecurities, fear of irrelevance, and a deep discomfort with your courage to change. You see, when you evolve, you disrupt the comfort zone they built for themselves and for you. Your growth exposes their stagnation. Your clarity highlights their confusion. Your strength shines a light on their passivity. So rather than face themselves, they focus on you. They poke holes in your confidence. They question your motives. They make you second-guess your choices, not because you're wrong, but because your transformation reminds them they've chosen to stay the same. These human-form demons rarely show their full hand at once. Instead, they work subtly. They discourage you from taking bold steps. They call your passions unrealistic. They remind you of your past every time you try to step into a new version of yourself. They whisper doubts, not to help you, but to keep you where they can manage you. Because if you outgrow them, if you reach the next level, you might finally see what they've been doing all along and walk away. It's painful to accept, especially when these people are friends you grew up with, family you trusted, or peers you once admired. But growth demands clarity. You have to be honest about the energy around you. Not everyone in your circle is in your corner. Not everyone who claps is genuinely celebrating. Some are only around to keep tabs on you, to make sure you don't get too far ahead, to ensure you stay within the box they placed you. Recognizing these demons doesn't make you bitter, it makes you wise. It doesn't mean you stop loving people, but it does mean you stop allowing their disguised darkness to dim your light. You are not here to carry their burdens, fix their brokenness, or shrink to fit their comfort. You're here to live free, bold and true. And that begins by recognizing that sometimes the biggest battles you'll ever fight don't come from the outside. They come from the demons walking beside you in human form. Validation is an inside job. It's not something you chase. It's something you claim. When you rely on others to approve of your path, your worth, or your choices, you hand them the power to define you. And the truth is, most people are too busy wrestling with their own insecurities to see you clearly. They can't validate what they don't understand. They won't support what threatens their comfort. And they won't celebrate your growth if it forces them to confront their own lack of it. Your worth isn't up for discussion. It doesn't rise or fall based on someone else's opinion. It's not determined by how many people agree with your vision or support your dreams. You were born with value. Deep, undeniable, unshakable value. But as long as you're seeking external validation, you'll always be at the mercy of the crowd. One day they'll cheer, the next they'll boo. If you live by their praise, you'll die by their criticism. True confidence is built when you stop asking the world for permission to be who you are. Approval from others feels good, but it's fleeting. The same people who applaud you today can turn on you tomorrow. That's why anchoring your identity in their acceptance is a dangerous trap. You start to bend your truth, soften your edges, and dilute your essence just to stay likable. And in the process, you lose yourself. You become a version of who they prefer, not who you truly are. That's not validation, that's performance. And no performance can sustain peace. Real power begins when you realize you don't need anyone to agree with you in order to walk in your purpose. You don't need validation to do what's right for your soul. You don't need applause to follow what's calling you forward. You don't need permission to let go, to change, to grow, or to rise. All of that is your divine right. And it doesn't require consensus. Some people will never support you, not because you're doing something wrong, but because your courage reminds them of their cowardice. Your confidence unsettles their insecurity. Your clarity exposes their confusion. And instead of working on themselves, they try to make you feel like you're too much, too bold, too ambitious, too different. But you are not too much. You are just too real for people who aren't ready to face their own reflection. Turn inward, validate yourself, approve of yourself. Trust your own voice more than the noise around you. Stand in your truth even when it's unpopular. Be proud of who you are becoming, not because others say you should be, but because you know in your heart that your path is true. That is where peace lives. That is where strength is born, and that is where your power becomes unshakable, not in the approval of others, but in the acceptance of yourself. Your energy is sacred. Your time, your peace, your emotional well-being, they are not infinite resources, yet too often we give them away freely to people and situations that do nothing but drain us. We find ourselves caught in endless cycles of drama, over-explaining, defending, arguing and pleasing, all for the sake of being understood or accepted. But not everyone deserves access to your energy. Not everyone is worthy of your light. There are people who feed off confusion, conflict and chaos. It's how they operate. They're not interested in clarity, peace or resolution. They want to stir things up, to keep you unbalanced, to manipulate your emotions and steal your calm. They thrive when you're anxious, distracted, or doubting yourself. And the more you engage, the more they take. You think if you explain yourself one more time, they'll finally understand. If you defend your position with the right words, they'll stop attacking. But it never ends. Because they're not seeking understanding, they're seeking control. That's why your energy must be protected at all costs. You don't need to answer every message, attend every argument, or involve yourself in every crisis someone throws your way. You don't need to fix everyone. You don't have to explain your decisions, your peace, or your distance. Sometimes the most powerful move you can make is silence, distance, a firm boundary. Not out of anger, but out of deep self-respect. Protecting your energy doesn't mean you don't care. It means you care about yourself enough not to pour into people who poke holes in your peace. It means recognizing that peace is not a luxury, it's a necessity. And anything that disrupts your peace on a consistent basis deserves to be reevaluated. If a conversation always leaves you anxious, if a relationship consistently drains you, if a space always makes you feel small, you owe it to yourself to step away. Your emotional energy is like currency. Every day you spend it. The question is, where is it going? Who are you investing in? What are you pouring into? And are you getting anything life-giving in return? Or is it all just withdrawal after withdrawal with nothing left for yourself? You cannot be everything to everyone. You are not a dumping ground for other people's unresolved issues. You are not a therapist for those who refuse to grow. You are not responsible for making broken people whole. Your first responsibility is to yourself, to your health, your balance, your emotional clarity. And that requires discernment. It requires knowing when to walk away, when to go quiet, when to stop giving explanations and start giving boundaries. It's not selfish to protect your peace, it's wise. It's not cruel to remove yourself from toxic spaces, it's necessary. Your energy is a gift. Don't waste it on people who treat it like it's disposable. Save your best for those who honor it, and more importantly, save some of it for yourself. You need it to grow, to heal, to become. Not everyone deserves access to your soul, and that's not cruelty. That's protection. You don't need permission to be who you are. You don't need approval to follow your dreams, to change your mind, or to evolve into a higher version of yourself. Your journey is your own, and it was never meant to make sense to everyone else. Too many people spend their lives waiting for someone to tell them it's okay to pursue what lights them up, to leave what no longer serves them, to be who they truly are. But the truth is, no one can give you the green light for your own life. That permission has to come from within. From the moment you decide to live authentically, you encounter resistance. People will question you, misunderstand you, and try to fit you into the box they're comfortable with. They may even label you too different, too bold, too rebellious, too ambitious. But remember this, you weren't born to blend in. You weren't born to live a watered-down version of yourself, to make others feel comfortable. You were born to rise, to evolve, and to walk your path boldly, even if that means walking it alone. Living your truth unapologetically means letting go of the fear of being misunderstood. It means being okay with people not getting you, not agreeing with you, and sometimes even walking away from you. That's the cost of authenticity. And it's a price worth paying, because the moment you start shaping your life around what others think or expect, you lose your sense of self. You trade your freedom for approval and your truth for acceptance. But acceptance that comes at the cost of your peace is not acceptance, it's imprisonment. You weren't created to meet someone else's expectations. You weren't designed to follow someone else's blueprint. Your journey is unique. The way you think, the way you feel, the way you move through the world, it all has a purpose. And when you try to squeeze yourself into boxes that were never built for you, you diminish the very gift you were meant to share with the world. You weren't made to fit in, you were made to stand out, to lead, to inspire by being fully yourself. There will be people who won't understand why you're changing. They'll say you've outgrown them, or you've become someone different. And that's okay. Growth isn't meant to be comfortable. It's meant to stretch you, to challenge you, to lead you into places you've never been before. You don't need to apologize for evolving. You don't need to explain why you're choosing peace, why you're saying no, why you're creating boundaries, or why you're finally prioritizing yourself. That's your right. That's your responsibility. You're not here to live a life others approve of. You're here to live a life that feels right to your soul. Stop waiting for someone to say, you're allowed. You are allowed. You always were. Give yourself full permission to take up space, to speak your truth, to make mistakes, to rise, to fall, and to rise again. This is your journey. Own it, honor it, and never apologize for it. You don't owe anyone an explanation. Not for your growth, not for your boundaries, not for your healing, and certainly not for the life you're building. The people who demand you explain yourself the most are often the ones who fear your transformation, because it reflects what they refuse to face in themselves. But their fear is not your problem. Their judgment is not your truth. Their confusion is not your burden to carry. You were not born to fit into someone else's version of who you should be. You were born to rise, boldly, unapologetically, and without permission. And that rise will make some people uncomfortable. It'll reveal their insecurities, trigger their envy, and expose their own lack of movement. But that has nothing to do with you. Your journey is sacred. Your peace is sacred. Your energy is sacred. Protect it. Guard it. Live it. Let the demons and people stay in the dark where they choose to be. You don't need to drag them into the light. You don't need to convince them of your worth. You don't need to explain your peace, your passion, or your purpose. The only person you ever needed to answer to is yourself. The version of you who knows the battles you've fought, the healing you've done, and the fire you've walked through to get here. Walk away from the need to be understood by those who are committed to misunderstanding you. Reclaim your power. Silence the noise. Move forward knowing this truth. You are enough. You are worthy, and you don't owe anyone anything except the freedom to be exactly